In the quiet kitchen, Mercy slowly lifted the hot iron. Its red light glowed like danger. The old mother stepped back, her hands shaking, whispering, "Please, don't do this." But Mercy moved closer, her shadow growing on the wall. She leaned in and said, "Tonight, you will learn your place." And in that moment, the whole house turned darker than the storm outside. "Shut your mouth, you bitter old woman. You think you can serve me cold food and walk free?" His voice cracked through the air like a whip. "You earned everything that happened. The food was cold. Are you trying to embarrass me in front of my friends? Please, I beg you. Have mercy." Her breath trembled. "Ah, my skin. Silence. You survive because of me. That's my blessing on you. Don't ever forget where you stand. Parasite. God, please, help me. No one is saving you today. I will make sure this pain lives in your bones forever." "Why? Why is the house so dark? Please, my son, help, help. Mom?" The late afternoon in Logos wrapped the skies like a heavy cloth, ready to burst open with rain. The clouds hung low, gray, pressing down on the grand rooftops of Ikoi like a warning from above. Inside the wide mansion, with its bright marble shining like water, Mama Nena sat on a wooden chair near the kitchen window, her crooked legs stretched out before her, one shaking softly as she held the tablecloth to steady herself. The smell of egusi soup, dried fish, and sharp hot spices filled the kitchen, thick and warm, like memories. But that comfort faded the moment slow footsteps crept up behind her. "You spilled soup again." Mercy's voice slid out soft, sweet, controlled yet carrying a hidden blade. Mama Nena flinched, eyes dropping. Yes, a few drops dotted the marble. She reached down with a cloth, but when her knees bent, a burning pain shot up her leg. Her left calf shivered helplessly under her weak weight. "I'm sorry. My legs are failing me," she whispered. Mercy stepped in close and snatched the rag from her hand. "If you want to be old and clumsy, fine. Just don't spread your mess around. Do you understand?" The elderly woman swallowed her words. She had lived long enough to know that some fights were lost before they began, especially when strength had left your body long ago. But her heart clenched at one word. This house belonged to her son. The same son she once carried inside a cracked mud hut, looking up through holes in the roof while whispering, "One day, my child, you will sleep in a house with strong walls and no leaking sky." Even in her wildest dreams, she never imagined a mansion shining like this. Back in Emo Village, Mama Nena was once the Iron Woman. Before sunrise, she lifted baskets of corn, beans, and fruit, dragging them to the market while her small back bent under the weight. Her palms hardened from firewood, heavy pots, and shielding her goods when storms swept through. Then came the accident at 19, when a truck swerved and she pushed her little sister out of death's way. Her own legs paid the price. One calf shrank forever. Every step since then burned like live coal. But she never surrendered. She learned to walk again with a wooden cane. She kept going. She kept selling. She raised Chiji-oke, with thin corn porridge so watery she could see the bottom of the pot. Yet every time she fed him, she smiled. "Eat, my son. One day you will eat in places I can never enter." When Chiji-oke entered university, she cried like a child. When he became a billionaire and appeared on TV, she held an old, wrinkled newspaper close to her chest, reading every line again and again even though her eyes blurred. But deep inside, one fear always hid the fear of being forgotten. When her son brought Mercy home, his face glowed like the young boy he used to be. "Mom, this is Mercy. She has a master's degree, works in a bank, very kind, very responsible," he said proudly, wrapping an arm around his bride. Mama Nena smiled, blaming herself for the strange ache in her chest. Mercy smiled like a magazine cover, perfect, polite, angelic. Her handshake was gentle, her bow respectful. In front of Chiji, she was sweetness itself. "Yes, sir." "No, sir." "Mom, let me help you." But when his back turned, her eyes hardened, cold, sharp, metallic. After the wedding, Chijioke left for Abuja for a business meeting. He held his mother's hands, the same hands that once held him as a tiny, hungry child. "Mom, stay here with Mercy. She'll take care of you. You don't need to work again." Mama Nena stared at his large, powerful fingers wrapped around hers. Maybe she had judged wrongly, she thought. Maybe God truly blessed her son with a good wife. But the bruises began to appear. On her knees, her arms, her thin wrist. Small, soft marks at first greenish, bluish shadows. Chijioke noticed. "Mom, what happened to your leg?" Mercy sighed gently, placing a loving hand on her husband's shoulder. "I told Mom not to climb those stairs. I begged her to let the workers handle everything, but she wouldn't listen. You know how stubborn old people can be." Mama Nena opened her mouth to speak the truth, but Mercy squeezed his shoulder and whispered, soft as honey, "I was so scared. She fell yesterday. I helped her up." Chiji's eyes softened instantly. "Mom, please listen to my wife. Don't strain yourself. Rest." Mama Nena's heart dropped. She saw blind trust in her son's eyes, thick like a glass wall she could see through but could not break. The second time he saw a bruise, Mercy already had her story ready. She hit her wrist on the table edge. "I keep warning her to be careful." Chijioke frowned, but Mercy's eyes filled with fake tears. "I would die if anything ever happened to her." He pulled her close. Mama Nena turned to the wall so no one would see her tears. That night, when the house was quiet and the palm leaves rattled outside, Mercy appeared at the old woman's door. "Tomorrow you'll scrub every tile downstairs. I have guests coming. I don't want dirty prints everywhere." "My leg," she whispered. "Walking is hard." Mercy leaned in, each word falling heavy as stone. "If you don't, well, don't clean. You can go back to Emo Village. Let's see how long a useless thing like you lasts." The door closed with a soft thud that broke something inside her. Emo Village, where her old hut was now rented out, where she had sold everything she owned so her son could rise. Going back meant telling the world that a billionaire's mother still crawled in poverty. That shame would crush her. So the next morning she knelt with her cane beside her, scrubbing tile after tile until sweat mixed with water and her knees went numb. But the worst pain wasn't the bruises, not the hunger, not the insults. The worst pain was seeing the bright love in her son's eyes whenever he spoke of his wife. "Mercy takes such good care of you, Mom. Don't be too hard on her. She's a modern woman." Mama Nena smiled the smile of someone whose heart had already cracked. "Yes, she's very modern," she whispered. Inside her chest, her faith crumbled. Still, she endured, believing her silence would keep her son happy. She never imagined that her quiet suffering and Chijioke's blind devotion would become the blade that someday tore his soul apart. One stormy night, when truth could no longer hide, the hot iron would be only the beginning of a nightmare. Morning in Ikoi began with the hum of the pool pump, the flutter of birds on the fence, and the crisp click-click of Mercy's heels across marble. Mama Nena knelt at the staircase, gripping a wet rag. Every step she cleaned tugged at her shaking knees, each crack of her left joint echoing through her bones like a warning. "Are you cleaning? Or sleeping down there?" "Af." Mercy's voice drifted from the top of the stairs, sweet as a song, but cold enough to freeze the air around her. Mama Nena lifted her face, sweat rolling down her wrinkled cheeks. "I'm almost done. My leg is weak," she murmured. Mercy rested one polished hand on the railing, holding a glass of orange juice in the other. She leaned forward. She leaned forward, like she was inspecting a stain she planned to wipe away herself. A disability is not an excuse to be lazy in a billionaire's home. Every step in this house has been walked by my husband's colleagues. I don't want them thinking his mother is some village woman who drags dirt inside. The words, his mother, dropped from her mouth like something worthless. An item, not a living soul. Mama Nena bowed her head and continued scrubbing, her back bending lower like she wished she could melt into the floor. Ever since she moved into her son's mansion, Mercy discovered something money could never erase memory. Whenever Chijioke reminisced, his voice softened. Back then, my mom carried charcoal bags just to buy my school books. Back then, she went to the hospital alone, then walked home on her cane to cook for me. His eyes glowed the same way they glowed when he was a boy, celebrating his perfect test scores. Mercy would sit beside him, smiling gently, her hand resting lightly on his thigh, but inside her heart, something dark twisted like a snake. Because the crippled woman with the shrunken leg, the one who limped around like she came from a forgotten world, was still the hero in the heart of the man she wanted to own completely. She hated that. So every day, she chipped away at whatever pride the old woman had left. By noon, the Lagos heat pushed against the windows like molten air. The AC hummed softly, the curtains swayed gently, and Mercy stood in the kitchen with her arms folded. Today I want jollof rice, egusi soup, grilled chicken, fried plantain, and that salad you made last time. And make something different for my husband. He doesn't like oily food. Mama Nena gripped the counter to keep herself standing. 5 dishes, she whispered. Mom cooks a bit slowly these days. Mercy raised her eyebrows sharply. Didn't you sell food at the market to feed your son? Are you complaining now? Or did you exaggerate those 9 stories to win his pity? Just one sentence. Yet it stabbed straight into the place she guarded the most. Her dignity. She said nothing. Her thin back faced the stove as she chopped vegetables with trembling fingers. The oven heat burned her eyes. Maiman heard her. When Hunter nodded, the distance from the stove to the dining table was short, but with her crooked leg, each trip felt like climbing a steep hill. By the time she placed the 5th dish on the table, sweat covered her blouse, and her hands shook so badly the ladle almost slipped. Mercy looked at the dishes, her lips lifting faintly. Not bad. But the way you walk with the plates, it looks so rustic. Next time we have guests, don't enter the living room. I don't want people asking why my mother-in-law looks like the hired help. The old woman froze, her fingers pressing into her palms until her nails left marks. Mother-in-law. Hired help. In her own son's house, those 2 roles were separated by only 1 sentence. That afternoon, rain hammered the zinc roof behind the kitchen. Horns echoed from the main road. Mama Nena reached beside her bed for her wooden cane. She felt nothing. She sat up quickly, heart pounding. My cane. Where is my cane? She pushed herself up, but without the cane, her body leaned dangerously. Pain shot from her knee to her skull. Holding onto the furniture, she dragged herself toward the door. Mercy sat on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, legs crossed, the TV playing softly only for decoration. Mercy. Have you seen my cane? The old woman whispered. Mercy didn't look up. Maybe the cleaner moved it. You don't need a cane. You only walk inside the house. But, my leg. This time Mercy lifted her head, annoyance flashing in her perfect eyes. What do you need the cane for? To limp around outside? Let people see a billionaire's mother hobbling like a street beggar? Go to your room. I don't want you wandering around embarrassing us. Silence. Billionaire. Beggar. Placed together in one cold breath like a sentence passed by a judge. That night, when she needed the bathroom, she used both hands to press against the wall and dragged her leg inch by inch. Every step burned like fire under her skin. She slipped once, falling hard. Her forehead struck the sink. A thin line of blood ran down her face. She bit her lip to stop her cry from escaping. Only one whisper broke free. "Help me." No one came. No one heard. On days when guests visited, the mansion sparkled. Laughter filled the halls. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Perfume floated in the air. Glasses clinked and soft piano music danced across the rooms. Mama Nena stood hidden behind the kitchen door, peeking through a thin gap. Her son laughed at something. His arm rested around Mercy. Mercy looked flawless. Fitted dress, red lipstick, gentle laugh, brushing guests' arms like she was born for this glittering world. An older guest teased, "Where's your mother?" "We must meet. The woman who raised such a brilliant man." Chijioke smiled and turned to Mercy. Mercy blinked softly and lifted her wine glass. "Oh, his mother's health is declining. She's resting. Crowds make her tired. I take care of her every day." The guests admired her. "What a wonderful daughter-in-law." "Chiji, you're blessed." Only one person heard those words like a slap. Mama Nena in the dark, gripping her apron until her knuckles turned white. In that moment she understood something clearly. In the story her son lived, she was only a name. Mercy was the writer, the lead actress, the editor of every line spoken in that house. And every time Chijioke believed her, another piece of the old woman's heart turned to dust. Abuse wasn't only slaps or shouting. In this mansion, it lived in the small things. Mornings spent scrubbing floors while her legs trembled like weak branches. Cooking until sweat soaked her back, only to hear Mercy say the food looked unrefined. Walking long hallways without a cane, every step cutting into her bones like a hidden knife. Being locked away during parties, treated like an old stool. No one wanted guests to see. Those tiny cracks built up day after day, hour after hour. Hairline fractures in a wall no one notices. Not until the storm hits and the whole house collapses. Mercy watched everything. She saw the bruises on the old woman's arms. She saw her trembling hands when she tried to stand. She heard her weak smile when she whispered, "I'm fine." And to Mercy, none of this caused pity. It excited her. It made her feel powerful. One evening, she stood in the kitchen as the iron heated up. The small red light glowed bright and angry, like the eye of something evil hiding in the shadows. An idea slipped into Mercy's mind. Slow, dark, dangerous. If bruises were not enough to teach the old woman her place, then a burn would be. A deep burn. A burn she would never forget. A burn that would remind her every day whose house she lived in. She ran a finger along the iron's handle, her lips curling into a cold smile. That day, Mercy didn't just want the old woman tired. She didn't just want her hurting. She wanted her to tremble whenever she walked past her. She wanted fear to live under her skin like a curse. "This is my house," she whispered to herself, "and on your body, I will leave my mark." That afternoon, Lagos turned so dark it felt like someone dragged the sky down to the rooftops. The wind roared against the windows, long and sharp, like spirits warning of danger. Inside the bright, white marble kitchen, Mama Nena stood shaking in front of the gas stove. She tried to stir the boiling soup, but her hands were weak. Sweat rolled down her cheek and dropped into the pot. The ladle slipped from her trembling fingers and fell to the floor with a loud metallic clang. Mercy appeared almost instantly, like a shadow that had been waiting. She stood in the doorway, arms folded tightly, eyes cold and sharp, sliding from the pot to the fallen ladle, to the trembling woman beside it. Her presence filled the room like a storm cloud. The old woman bent down slowly to pick up the ladle, her leg shaking so badly she had to grab the counter to keep from falling. Her breath came fast, frightened, aware something terrible was about to happen. Mercy stepped closer. Her heels clicked on the marble floor like small warnings. "Is this how you cook?" she asked softly, voice low and sweet in a way that made the air feel dangerous. "You waste food," You drop things. You walk around like an animal with a broken leg. Mama Nena swallowed hard. I'm trying. My body is weak. Mercy moved even closer until her perfume mixed with the burning smell from the stove. She reached out and lifted the hot iron from the counter. The metal glowed bright, red, alive. The old woman's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands twisted together in fear. Mercy tilted her head. A small, cruel smile touched her lips. You know, she whispered, sometimes people only learn when the lesson touches their skin. The red iron hissed in the air. The kitchen felt too small, too hot, too silent, as if the whole world was waiting for the scream. But before anything happened, a loud noise suddenly came from outside the kitchen. A door shutting. Footsteps. A voice. Mercy lowered the iron for a moment, hiding it behind her leg. Her cold face transformed instantly into a soft, gentle mask. Because someone was home. And that someone could not know what she planned. The storm outside howled like it wanted to warn the house. Warn the old woman. Warn the son who trusted the wrong angel. Warn everyone that something dark was rising like a shadow in that mansion. But the walls stayed silent, and Mercy's smile grew sharper. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. I rendered in gnome. Maybe next time. Mercy's face twisted into something dark, something sharp, something filled with open disgust. What did you spill now? She snapped. Do you think a billionaire's kitchen is the same as that tiny food stall you used to run back in Emo Village? Mama Nena bent down slowly, her fingers shaking as she reached for the fallen ladle. I'm sorry. I can cook it again, she whispered. Mercy marched forward and grabbed her arm so hard the old woman nearly toppled over. Cook again? You move slower than a crippled tortoise, she spat. His friends will arrive any minute. I told you to prepare 5 dishes, and you've only made 2. Are you trying to disgrace me in front of them, Mama? The old woman tried to speak, her voice breaking. My leg hurts. I can't keep up. A twisted smile crept across Mercy's lips, the kind of smile that wasn't meant for joy, but for cruelty. A smile that meant she had finally run out of patience. Good, she whispered, her voice slithering across the tiles like a snake. Because today, you are going to remember who you are. She released the old woman's arm and pulled open a drawer. A small click echoed through the kitchen as she plugged something into the wall. Mama Nena's heart slammed against her chest. She looked up, breath frozen. Mercy slid out the iron. A big one. Heavy steel plate. The kind used to press Chijioke's expensive shirts. She placed it on the counter and turned the heat dial all the way up. The red light blinked. Heat shimmered around it like invisible fire. The old woman stumbled backward, her back hitting the cabinet. Mercy. No. Please, my child. Let me keep cooking. I will go faster, I promise. Mercy walked toward her slow, steady, like a predator circling its prey. Her heels clicked across the floor, each sound a warning. Who do you think you are in this house? She hissed. You're a crippled old woman living on charity. Me? I am the one in charge here. I am the one Chiji loves. You don't get to speak. You don't get to complain. She grabbed the old woman's wrist and dragged her toward the iron. Mama Nena struggled, her voice thin with fear. Mercy. Mercy. Please. My leg is weak. I didn't mean to spill anything. I was only trying to help. Wrong. Mercy growled, leaning in so close that her eyes filled the old woman's whole world. You are here to serve me. And today, I'll make sure you never forget that. Her fingers dug into the old woman's wrist until the bones turned white. Then, in one fast, brutal motion, Mercy slammed the old woman's hand onto the scorching iron. The sound of burning flesh cracked through the kitchen. A sharp, horrible hiss that tore through the air. Mama Nena's scream erupted like a cloth being ripped in half, raw, loud, shaking the marble, the walls, the storm-dark Lagos sky itself. The hot plates seared into her skin. Heat exploded through the room, filling it with the sickening smell of flesh turning black. Her fingers jumped, twisted, convulsed, but Mercy pressed down harder. Her face twisted with vicious rage. "You ungrateful old witch," she shrieked. "You will remember this every time you look at that hand. You will never disobey me again." The old woman collapsed, her body curling into a small, trembling ball. Tears rushed down her face, mixing with sweat and agony, becoming one unbearable river of pain. When Mercy finally released her, the skin on the old woman's hand was bright red, then purple, then turning black, swollen, rising like something that might burst open. She fell to the marble floor, holding her burned hand to her chest, sobbing like a wounded child left alone in the night. Mercy watched her with empty eyes. Not one flicker of pity. She pulled a tissue from her pocket and gently wiped a bit of sweat from her own forehead. Her voice was flat and cold when she spoke again. "If you ever defy me again, next time it won't just be your hand." She turned and walked away, her heels tapping like a victory drum, leaving Mama Nena shaking on the cold floor like a leaf trapped in a storm. Outside the glass windows, thunder roared. Lightning tore across the sky in blinding streaks. No one knew those thunderclaps were a warning, a drum roll before the fall of the wicked, because just minutes later, the low growl of an SUV engine rolled through the mansion gate. Chijioke had come home early, and what he was about to witness would destroy everything he believed. That night in Lagos felt heavy enough to crush the whole city. The wind twisted through the mansion courtyard, whipping dry leaves in wild circles. Inside the kitchen, Mama Nena still lay curled on the icy marble floor, her burned hand swollen and purple-black. The skin stretched like it might tear apart. She gasped for air, each breath slicing through her chest like a sharp blade. Mercy stood in the doorway, a tissue stained with mascara clenched in her fist. Her face held no guilt, no worry, nothing human. She looked at the suffering woman as if she were staring at a broken pot on the floor. But then, she heard it. The crunch of tires on gravel. Her whole body stiffened. The automatic gate flew open fast, too fast, like someone had slammed the button with panic. An SUV engine roared through the driveway. A black Range Rover glided in, headlights slicing through the wet trees, throwing bright white beams across the kitchen windows. Raindrops splattered against the hood like tiny fists. Mercy inhaled sharply, her heart punched against her ribs. "I'm finished," she whispered, voice tight with fear. She rushed forward, grabbing the old woman's sweater sleeve, trying desperately to pull it over the burned hand. But Mama Nena trembled too violently. Every time Mercy touched her, she flinched away, whimpering like a wounded animal. "Hold still, you useless old woman," Mercy hissed, her voice trembling with frantic anger. But the more she barked, the more violently the old mother shook. Outside, the car door shut with a crack, hard, final, brutal. The sound slammed through the walls like the hammer of a guillotine. Then came footsteps. Fast, heavy, purposeful. Crossing the stone courtyard with the speed of a man who felt something was wrong. Footsteps Mercy knew too well, Chijioke. The billionaire. The man she needed to fool. The man she could not afford to let see the truth. The front door lock twisted. The door burst open. "Mercy!" His voice rang through the hallway, tired but sharp, carrying the heat of a man who sensed danger. "Why is the kitchen light still on? Where are you?" Mercy sucked in a long breath, forcing her voice soft. "Baby, you're home early? I was just—" But his footsteps were already pounding toward the kitchen. Quick, hard, commanding. Each one hitting the marble like a war drum. Chijioke stepped into the kitchen. He wore a dark gray shirt, sleeves rolled up, briefcase still in his hand, never even opened. His hair was wet from the rain, his breathing heavy, almost shaky, like he had run from the car. He had never come home early like this. "Mercy!" he barked. "I heard a noise. Where is my mother?" Mercy swallowed and stretched a weak smile across her face. She's sleeping. I just cleaned the kitchen. Don't wake her." But then, he paused. Just 1 second. Just one breath. And something small caught his eye. His mother's slipper. Crooked on the tile. Not where she always kept it. Not a calm slipper. Not a slipper of a woman sleeping peacefully. Beside it, a single tear on the marble, fresh, still shining in the kitchen light. Chijioke's eyes narrowed, dark, and sharp. "Why, is my mother's slipper here?" Mercy froze. Only for a heartbeat. But that heartbeat was more than enough. "She must have come to get water," she said, quickly. "I didn't see her in the kitchen." His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "What do you mean? You didn't see her?" "Baby. She was thirsty." Mercy forced a laugh. "You know she likes cold water." But her voice faded, because as she spoke, Chijioke's gaze drifted downward. Lower. Lower. And then he saw them. His mother's feet. Bare. Shaking. Poking out from behind the kitchen island. Curled tight like the body of a bird that had fallen from the sky. "Mom." His voice cracked. Split open. Broken. A sound Mercy had never heard from him, not once in their marriage. He lunged forward, rounding the counter, and what he saw stopped his heart. His mother, lying on her side on the cold marble floor, her burned arm twisted against her chest, her breath shallow, her hand a swollen, blistered mass of purple and black. Her eyes glazed with pain, tears still fresh on her cheeks. That sight would haunt him for the rest of his life. Her burned hand was... He won, folded tight against her chest, as if her body was trying to protect the little strength she had left. Her wrist had turned swollen, blackened, blistered, marked with the unmistakable brand of a scorching iron pressed against living skin. Tears had dried on her cheeks like salt trails. Her lips trembled non-stop. Her whole body shook with pain so deep it crawled through her bones. "Jioke," she whispered, her voice thin and fragile like a thread ready to break. You came home." He dropped to his knees so fast the briefcase slipped from his hand and thudded onto the marble. "Oh my God. Mama." His voice cracked. "What happened? Who did this? Who touched you?" "Who?" Before he could finish, her trembling fingers reached up and grabbed the front of his shirt. Weak, desperate, pulling him closer with the last strength she had. "No, don't blame anyone," she whispered. "Mama fell. Mama made mistake. No." His voice broke apart, thick, with pain. "No, Mama, you've never lied to me. Not like this. Not ever." His breath shook as he spoke. "Mama, who hurt you?" Behind him, Mercy stood frozen. Her breath caught in her throat, her knees wobbled. She took one step back, then another. The room shrank around her. The air thickened. Her world tightened like a noose pulling closed. And then, from the corner of his eye, Chijioke saw it. The iron, sitting on the counter, still faintly glowing from leftover heat, still plugged in. Something inside him cracked. A sharp, clean sound. The sound of trust shattering. The sound of a heart breaking. The sound of a marriage dying in 4 seconds of silence. He rose to his feet slowly, too slowly. Deliberately. But the fury building behind his eyes was volcanic, hot, rising like fire searching for air. He turned toward Mercy. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because the look on his face, the look of a son who had just seen the truth behind the angel he once loved, told Mercy she had lost everything. Everything. He lifted his mother, carried her gently to her bed, and wrapped a temporary bandage around her burned wrist. But his hands shook from fear, from pain, from regret bursting through him like a broken dam. The room was so quiet he could hear her faint, fragile breaths. He looked down at her swollen hand, wrapped in cloth, and a sharp ache stabbed through his chest like a knife driven straight into him. And then, memories pulled him backward with such force he felt dizzy. He was 8 years old again, a skinny boy with bright eyes and dusty feet, running beside the emo village stream with a tattered paper kite fluttering over him. The wind picked up. The kite string snagged on a low branch hanging above the stream. "Mama! I can get it!" he shouted, eyes shining. Mama Nena. Then, in her early 30s, her body strong, though her leg was already damaged, called out, "No! Chijioke! Don't go near those rocks! They're slippery." But he didn't listen. He stepped onto a moss-covered stone and slipped. The world flipped. Cold water swallowed him whole. He remembered the fear perfectly, water crushing into his mouth, cold choking his nose, his arms flailing, his feet kicking only emptiness. The current dragging him deeper, spinning him like a rag doll. He thought, "I'm going to die." But through the roaring water, a hand seized his wrist. Weak, but unbreakable. His mother. She didn't think. She didn't pause. She didn't remember her bad leg or the pain that always followed her. She jumped. The current slammed her into rocks. Her back hit a boulder. Her knee smashed so hard it turned purple. Her left leg buckled, but she kept pushing him upward, refusing to let go. He broke the surface first, gasping for air. His mother dragged herself onto the bank behind him, shaking like a leaf caught in a storm. "Mama, did it hurt?" he whispered. She pulled him into her arms, water dripping from her hair onto his cheek. "As long as you live," she said softly, crying into his ear. "I can bear any pain." Back then, he didn't truly understand those words. Tonight, they stabbed into him like a blade. Back in the present, Chijioke stood beside her bed, one hand gripping the bed frame so tight the veins on his arm rose like ropes. He stared at his mother. This small, fragile woman with the leg that had shriveled since she was 19. This woman who once jumped into a raging stream to save him, now lying broken in the home he bought to keep her safe. A tear slid down his face. He couldn't remember the last time he cried. Shame wrapped around him like chains. Why didn't I see it? Why did I trust Mercy's sweet words? Why did I ignore my mother's pain? How did the hand that saved my life end up burned? In my own house. Outside, the rain slammed harder against the window, each drop striking like a hammer against his skull. Chijioke sat beside her, and gently took her burned hand into his own. "Mama," he whispered, voice splitting open. "I'm sorry. I failed you. I let you suffer. I didn't protect you." Mama Nena slowly opened her eyes, clouded, exhausted, but filled with the kind of love no human could ever copy. She managed a faint smile despite the pain. "You came back," she whispered. "That means God did not take your heart away." Her words stabbed deep into him, tearing something wide open. Out in the hallway, Mercy stood frozen, only a few steps away. Her heartbeat pounded like war drums. She saw the look in Chiji's eyes, a look she had never seen before. No admiration, no trust, no love. Only a deep, burning fury, a betrayal that no apology could erase. And in that dim hallway, Mercy felt something icy wrap around her spine. It was over. She knew it. And there was nowhere left to run. The storm outside pounded the windows like a giant trying to break in. Rain slammed against the glass in angry sheets, sliding down in long trails that blurred the view of the courtyard. The thunder was so loud it felt like the sky was splitting open. shaking the entire mansion with each crack. The lights flickered once, then steadied, casting a ghostly glow across the room where Mama Nena lay curled on her side. Her breathing came in small, broken gasps, each one sounding thinner than the last. Her burned hand trembled uncontrollably under the blanket she had tried to pull over it. Even the brush of fabric against her blistered skin made her teeth dig into her lip to stop a cry. Her arm pulsed with a deep, raw pain, the kind that spread like fire from her fingertips to her shoulder. She pressed the burned hand against her chest, not because it helped, but because it was the only thing she could do to feel any control over the pain tearing through her. Chijiok stood beside the bed, head bowed, hands braced on his knees as if his entire body had collapsed inward. He looked like a man who had taken a punch straight to his soul. His chest heaved with slow, heavy breaths. He wanted to scream, to break something, to tear apart the walls of the house he once thought was paradise. But he stayed still, quiet, because even the slightest noise might hurt his mother more. He stared at her, really stared. Her face looked smaller than he remembered, her cheeks hollow, the soft lines around her eyes deeper, carved from years of silent suffering. Her hair, once black and full, now thin and silvered. Even the way she breathed, fragile, faint, struck him with a force he had never felt in his life. This was the woman who had held him when he was sick, who carried him on her back when his legs were too tired to walk, who went hungry just to make sure he had food, who moved mountains with nothing but her strength and stubborn love. And now she lay there, trembling like a bird whose wings had been broken. His throat tightened, his vision blurred. He felt as if someone had ripped open the past and pushed all his memories into his chest at once. Then, Mama Nena's eyes opened, slow and heavy, like she was lifting a mountain with her eyelids. They were full of love, the kind of love that had never once dimmed. Not in 30-something years, not through poverty or sickness or loneliness. Her eyes were always love, no matter how much the world crushed her. She looked at him with that same gentle warmth. Even though her breath shook, her lips parted, she whispered, "Don't blame Mercy. Don't destroy your marriage because of me." The words hit him like a hammer. Why would she say that? Why would she defend the same woman who had burned her hand? Why would she protect someone who had turned his mother into a trembling shadow of herself? A suspicion shot through him, sharp and bright, like lightning splitting through his chest. Why did she panic when he mentioned Mercy's name? Why did she hide her hand so quickly? Why did she lie about falling when she had never lied to him before? Something was wrong. Very wrong. He stared at her, his breathing slow and heavy. He studied the way her fingers tightened around the blanket, how her eyes darted away, refusing to meet his, how her burned hand twitched under the covers as if it were screaming. Then, something inside him clicked, sharp and final. He sat up abruptly, his voice firmer than she had ever heard it. "Mama," he said quietly, "let me see the injury." His tone was so serious that she flinched. Instantly, she pulled her hand deeper under the blanket. Her face drained of color. Her eyes widened in fear. Not fear of the pain, but fear of what he might find. And that reaction, that one small movement, made every piece of the puzzle fall into place like a hammer striking stone. Chijiok rose to his feet so fast the bed shook. His heart hammered in his chest, each beat louder than the thunder outside. A wild mixture of fear, anger, and guilt flooded him all at once. He felt something break inside the last piece of denial he had been holding on to. Without another word, he pulled out his phone. His thumb trembled slightly as he unlocked it. He clicked the mansion's security camera app. The screen lit up. His breath caught. His chest tightened until he thought his ribs would crack. He tapped on one feed. Cam 4 Kitchen. For a moment, the screen showed darkness because the camera loaded slowly. His fingers shook harder. He wiped the screen with his sleeve, though it wasn't wet. He swallowed. He felt sweat gather under his collar even though the room was cold. Then the footage flashed. He watched. He saw. He saw everything. He saw Mercy dragging his mother by the arm. He saw the iron heating on the counter. He saw Mama Nena begging on her knees, hands trembling. He saw Mercy grab her wrist. He saw her force the old woman's hand onto the iron. He saw her press down harder as his mother screamed and thrashed. He saw the woman he loved. The woman he had trusted with his life turn into a monster before his eyes. The screams echoed from the video even though it was silent. He could hear them anyway. He could feel them. They rang inside his skull, slicing through every memory he had of Mercy. Smiling, laughing, posing for photos, telling him she loved him. Everything became a lie. Every smile, every kiss, every soft word she ever whispered became poison. He felt his knees weaken. His mother had been living in hell inside his own home while he walked around calling himself a good son. Shame washed over him, thick and suffocating. Anger roared through his blood like a river breaking free. Guilt tore at his chest with sharp claws. He had failed her. He had failed the one person who had never let him down. He turned slowly toward the doorway. Mercy stood there. She looked like a woman trapped between running and collapsing. Her hands shook. Her breath came in fast, shallow bursts. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Out. She saw the phone in his hand. She saw the reflection of the camera feed on his face. She knew what he had seen. His eyes met hers. The look he gave her was colder than the rain outside, harder than anything she had ever witnessed. It was the look of a son whose soul had been set on fire. The look of a man who had just realized he had married a devil. The look of a heart that would never forgive. Mercy stepped back. Her face drained of color. Her fingers clawed at the wall for support. Her breath broke into small gasps. "Chiji, baby, don't," he said softly. His voice was too calm, too quiet, too controlled. It scared her more than screaming ever could. He took one slow step toward her. "You hurt my mother. Please let me," she stammered, shaking. "You burned my mother." His voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It cut. "You tortured the woman who raised me." Mercy collapsed to her knees, hands trembling, tears spilling down her face. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean she provoked me. She. He shook his head slowly. "No lie can save you now." The storm outside roared, as if it were answering him. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in harsh white light. The windows rattled as thunder cracked through the sky. Inside the room, the only thing louder than the storm was the silence between them. Chijioke walked past Mercy without looking at her again. He went back to his mother's bedside. He knelt. "Mama," he whispered, voice cracking for the second time that night. "I saw everything. I know the truth." Tears slipped down her face silently. "I'm sorry," he breathed. "I should have protected you. I should have seen it. I should have." She touched his shoulder weakly. "You came back." Her voice was soft, but powerful enough to break him. "That means God did not take your heart away." He bowed his head and cried openly, painfully for the first time since he was a boy. Outside, Mercy knelt on the floor in the hallway, trembling like a leaf in a storm her arrogance had created. Inside, mother and son clung to each other in a silence filled with pain, truth, and a love stronger than fear. And the storm raged on, as if the heavens themselves were watching and waiting for what would come next. Chijioke's thumb trembled as he scrolled the footage back 1 hour. The screen flickered, loading each second like it carried the weight of 1,000 storms. Then, the image that shattered the entire foundation of his life appeared with painful clarity. Mercy, standing in the kitchen, the iron glowing red in her hand like a demon's eye, her face sharp, cold, carved from ice. Mama Nena was being dragged into a chair. Her hands shook violently. Her voice cracked like brittle wood as she begged, "My child, please, don't do this. Please." But Mercy's scream cut through the audio like a blade. "A useless thing doesn't get to speak in a billionaire's house. I am the one in charge." Then, she pressed the iron onto the old woman's wrist. The burst of steam, the sizzling crack, the horrible stench of burning flesh, all filled the kitchen in the video. Chijioke felt his blood turn to ice. His jaw locked. His body stiffened. The phone almost slipped from his grip. He stood upright slowly, but his face turned white as chalk. The walls around him seemed to tilt. The floor felt like water. Everything in him broke and re-broke with each frame he watched. A single tear slid down from his chin. It landed on the phone screen, right on the image of his mother writhing on the floor. It wasn't a tear of fear. It wasn't weakness. It was a tear made of pure, slicing pain. A pain so great it almost pushed him to his knees. The video ended. The screen went black, and his soul went black with it. Chijioke inhaled, a slow, controlled breath that did not feel human. When he lifted his head again, his eyes were no longer gentle, no longer grateful, no longer belonging to the calm billionaire who charmed rooms. His eyes belonged to a man who had been carved open by betrayal, a man whose anger rose like a volcano ready to tear the world apart. He straightened his back. His shoulders hardened. His steps gained a deadly purpose. He walked out of the room without a single word. In the hallway, Mercy pressed herself against the wall. She wiped tears with shaking hands, forcing the weakest smile she had ever made. "Baby, you came home so early. I didn't get a chance to..." "Mercy." His voice tore through the hallway like a lion roaring from the bottom of a valley. The walls shook. The air froze. Mercy flinched so violently her knees almost gave out. This was not the voice of a husband. Not a tired man. Not even a frustrated man. This was the voice of a son who had just witnessed his mother being tortured. The voice of a man whose trust had been ripped apart. The voice of fire. Mercy felt dread crawl up her spine like cold insects. She knew, right then, that everything was over. Her power, her image, her lies, all of it was collapsing like a dying building. The storm outside struck hard against the mansion windows. Thunder roared so loud it sounded like a judge pounding a gavel. But inside the air was heavier than the entire sky. Mercy stood pressed to the hallway wall, her heels sinking into the velvet carpet she used to admire. Her perfectly drawn eyeliner had streaked down her cheeks, mixing with tears. Not tears of guilt, but tears of fear. Chijioke walked toward her. Slow, measured, controlled, yet more terrifying than any storm Lagos had ever seen. Every step he took echoed through the marble like nails being driven into the coffin of a marriage that had died that night. "Baby, I can explain," Mercy whispered. "Explain?" His voice was low, deep, filled with something ancient and dangerous. "Explain why my mother's hand is burned?" He stepped closer. "Explain why her voice trembles when she hears your name?" Another step. "Or explain why you pressed a scorching iron onto the skin of the woman who gave up her entire life so I could breathe." Mercy backed up until her spine hit the wall hard. I was angry. She didn't respect." His shout cracked through the hallway like a thunderbolt. "Respect?" Mercy flinched as if the air itself had slapped her. "You think respect is something you earn through torture? Through threats? Through fear?" His breath shook with rage. "No, Mercy. You didn't want respect. You wanted control." She opened her mouth, but only a broken cry came out. Before she could speak, before she could lie again, before she could twist anything, Chijioke dialed a number. His hands did not tremble this time. "Attorney Okafor," he said, voice steady. "Come to my house immediately. Bring the police. We have a criminal case." Mercy's legs buckled beneath her. "Chijioka Chiji, baby. You can't do this to me. You love me. You—" "No." His voice was calm, cold, cruel in a truthful way. "I loved the woman I thought you were. But the woman I see now, she's a stranger, a danger. Someone I cannot even look at without remembering my mother's scream." Mercy slid down the wall, collapsing to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. 15 minutes later, blue lights filled the driveway. Police cars rolled in, tires crunching against wet gravel. Their sirens faded as the engines shut off. Officers entered the mansion. Attorney Okafor followed, face set like iron. "Mrs. Mercy Olide," an officer announced. "You are under arrest for elderly abuse and aggravated assault." "No. No. I am the wife of billionaire Chiji." "You can't." Before she could finish, 2 officers grabbed her arms. Cold metal cuffs snapped shut around her wrists. That metallic click echoed like the final nail sealing her downfall. They dragged her forward. Her hair tangled, makeup smeared. Her expensive clothes looked cheap against the truth. She turned back, hoping, begging that Chijioke might look at her, might pity her, might give her one last second of hope. But he had already turned away. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of finality. The chapter was closed. The storm, the screams, the torture. All of it ended the moment she left the house in handcuffs. The next morning came quietly, as if the sky itself felt ashamed of what had happened the night before. Lagos Teaching Hospital smelled faintly of disinfectant, warm porridge, and early sunlight. Birds outside chirped softly from a tree, their tiny sounds slipping through the window of room 407. Mama Nena lay in the narrow hospital bed, her wrist wrapped in thick white gauze. Her palm was swollen, blistered, angry in color, but her eyes, for the first time in a long time, looked calmer. Not because the pain had disappeared, it pulsed through her arm like fire under the skin, but because someone was finally sitting beside her. Someone whose presence was more powerful than any medicine. Her son. Chijioke sat in a metal chair right next to her bed, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Her good hand held tightly in both of his. He hadn't slept. His clothes were wrinkled. His hair was messy. But his eyes were open wide, raw, red. "Mama," he whispered, voice shaking with exhaustion. "I'm sorry. All this time, I trusted the wrong person. I let you suffer alone. I failed you." He bowed his head and pressed his forehead gently against the back of her bandaged hand. His shoulders trembled. His breath came out broken. The billionaire was crying like a boy again. Mama Nena watched him, her heart aching not for her pain, but for his. She lifted her other hand, the one Mercy had not destroyed, and slowly stroked his hair. Her fingertips traced the same patterns she used to draw on his head when he distraught, was 5 years old and afraid of the dark. "You came back," she whispered softly. "That means your heart is still there." Her voice carried warmth like morning sunlight, even though her body shook beneath the sheets. Those simple words broke something inside him. Not in a painful way, but in a healing way, like a wound finally allowed to breathe. He lifted his head. "Mama, I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Not while I live, not while I breathe." She nodded weakly, her eyes softening. And for the first time in so many years, for the first time since she entered that mansion, a small smile formed on her lips. It wasn't big, it wasn't wide, but it was bright, bright enough to fill the room. Outside the window, the Lagos sky slowly opened into a soft, golden blue dawn. No trace of last night's violent storm remained. Branches dripped with sunlight. Clouds drifted like cotton. It felt like the world was washing itself clean. Inside, room 407, mother and son sat together, breathing out months, maybe years, of hidden suffering. A family once broken had found its way back, not through wealth, not through power, not through status, but through truth, love, and justice. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. He just held her hand. She just breathed beside him. Silent, human, alive. The door creaked open. A nurse stepped in, adjusting her gloves. "Mr. Olid," she said gently. "The doctor will be here soon to check her wounds." He nodded, wiping his tears quickly with the back of his hand. The nurse smiled kindly at the old woman. "Good morning, Mama. How do you feel?" Mama Nena managed a soft laugh. "Like a pot left too long on fire." The nurse chuckled, shaking her head. "Your spirit is strong. You'll heal faster than you think." When the nurse left, the air grew quiet again. Not heavy this time, but peaceful. Chijioke exhaled deeply. He needed that peace. He needed the calm. But even in the quiet, one question burned inside his mind. How had he not seen the truth? For years he had bragged about his mother. For years he had praised Mercy's kindness. For years he believed every soft smile that woman flashed at him. How? How had he been so blind? He shut his eyes tightly, pain twisting deep inside him, guilt, shame, fury. He remembered the river, the slippery rocks, the icy water pulling him under, the way his mother jumped in without a thought. She had saved his life once. And now, decades later, her pain had saved his soul from blindness again. Life had turned in a full circle. He looked down at her burned hand. The swelling, the blisters, the deep purple bruising. His throat tightened. No mother, he whispered, should ever suffer inside her son's home. Time passed slowly. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Voices drifted in from outside. The world moved on as if nothing had happened. But inside this room, a sacred moment was unfolding. A moment of truth. A moment of healing. A moment of justice, finally beginning. Later that morning, a soft knock sounded on the doorframe. Attorney Okafor entered the room, his briefcase tucked under his arm. "Sir," he said quietly, "the officers have taken Mercy into custody. The charges are strong. There is enough evidence for a full trial." Chijioke nodded, without looking away from his mother. "Good. Make sure the judge sees everything." "Yes, sir. Everything." As the lawyer stepped out, the old woman sighed softly. "Chi, don't destroy yourself with anger," she whispered. "Let the law do its work." He swallowed, forcing his voice steady. "I'm not angry for me, Mama. I'm angry for you." She smiled faintly. "That anger means you love me," she whispered. "But too much anger brings sickness." Her words sank into his heart. He nodded slowly. "I will be stronger. For you." Minutes passed. Hours passed. The sun moved higher in the sky. Then doctors arrived with charts, gloves, gentle hands, and soft voices. They cleaned her hand, applied new medicine, checked her blood pressure. She winced at each touch. Chijioke flinched with her, as if the pain were his. When the doctor left, he turned back to her. "Mama, when you are healed, I will take you away from that house. Anywhere you want. You will live somewhere peaceful. Somewhere safe." The old woman blinked slowly. "Son," she whispered, her voice thin but sure. "The only place I want to live is near you, wherever you are." He swallowed, overcome with emotion. "You will," he said. "I promise." A soft breeze entered through the window, brushing the curtains like a quiet blessing. Mama Nena looked outside, eyes reflecting the golden sunlight of the new day. For years, she whispered, I thought I lost you to the world. But now I see. God never let go of your heart. He sat beside her, his eyes filling again, but this time with something gentler. Love. Relief. Gratitude. She touched his cheek weakly. You are still my child, no matter how rich you become, no matter how tall you grow. And you, he said, voice breaking, are still my mother. Outside the hospital, Lagos buzzed with life. Cars honked, people rushed, children laughed, vendors shouted. The world continued. But in room 407, time slowed. Time healed. Time stitched a broken family back together. A long silence passed. Then, very quietly, she whispered, What do we learn from pain, my son? He squeezed her hand gently. That love must be protected, he said softly. And those who hurt the innocent will face their truth. She nodded. Yes, pain teaches us. Pain shapes us. Sometimes, pain saves us. The light outside grew brighter. The clouds softened. The city shimmered with a new day. And in that moment, it was clear. No amount of wealth, no amount of success, no big mansion, no luxury car could ever compare to the quiet, powerful truth of love between a mother and her child. After a while, she drifted into gentle sleep. Her breathing eased. Her face relaxed. Chijioke sat beside her, watching her like a guardian, a protector, a son reborn. He thought of everything. The lies, the bruises, the hiding, the fear, and he whispered, I promise, Mama, never again. He stood, walked to the window, looked at the bright sky, and like to time, he stood. He would beamin. He would be beamin. He would beamin health. The storm was gone, but the lesson remained. Never confuse kindness for weakness. Never replace love with pride. Never let outsiders choose how you treat the ones who gave you life. Because at the end of everything, money builds houses, but only family builds a home. And from that moment on, Chijioke vowed with every breath he had to protect the woman who once jumped into a raging river just to save him from drowning.